In this video, we're going to take a look at factorising quadratics. Now, when we say factorise here, remember factorising is just putting, say, this quadratic here into brackets. Now, because this is a quadratic, we'll have two brackets. And the way I like to factorise quadratics is by using team. So team here tells us how we factorise quadratics. And the way that tells us is the T here stands for times. So that tells us that we need to multiply here to get the n number. And then we add to get the middle number. So when we say the end and the middle number here, this is our n number, so we need two numbers that will times to give me positive 5, but then we'll add to give me positive 6, okay? So in this case then, we just need to pick two numbers that times to give me positive 5, so it doesn't matter what two numbers we pick here, let's just say 1 and 5. Well, 1 and 5, 1 times 5 gives me 5, perfect, it works for times in multiplication. And then 1 plus 5 gives me positive 6, so it also works for addition. So perfect, that means these are the two numbers that we need. So because we're factorising, like we said, we're putting this into brackets, so we have two brackets. And we have two brackets, like we said, because this is a quadratic, x squared plus 6x plus 5. So now, because we're working with this variable here being x, we're going to have an x at the front of both brackets. So we're going to have an x there and an x there. So now we've picked our two numbers. These two numbers now just go into the brackets. That's all we need to do here. So one of the brackets will contain this 1, so it's going to be plus 1. And then the other bracket will contain the 5, so it's going to be plus 5 there. Okay. And that's actually our solution. Now, there is a nice way of checking our solution, and we just use the method that we saw in the previous video. So when we expanded double brackets. So in this case, using FOIL like we saw in the previous video, we do the first two terms together, so x times x, that gives me x squared. We then do x times 5, we're doing the outside terms now, so x times by 5 gives me 5x. Now doing the inside terms, 1 times x gives me just plus x, or plus 1x. And then finally, 1 times by 5 gives me plus 5 there. And if we collect like terms here, I'm going to get x squared. 5x plus x gives me 6x. And then finally, we just got the 5. And notice here, what we've got now once we've expanded these double brackets is exactly what we started with. And that's what you should get. Once you expand those double brackets out, if you get something different, then you know you've factorized it incorrectly. Okay, so it's always a nice little check to do, good habit to get into, so try and do that whilst you're working through these problems. So that's the first example done. Let's take a look at this next example here, where we're factorizing b squared minus 6b minus 27. Now again, we just use team to do this, so we times to get the n number, add to get the middle. So we need two numbers, that times to give me minus 27, but we'll add to give me minus 6. So picking two numbers here, that times to give me minus 27. It's up to you which two numbers you pick to start with, it doesn't really matter. We just do this using trial and error. So let's say we pick minus 1 and 27. Well, minus 1 times 27 does give me the minus 27, but it doesn't give me minus 6 when we add them together, okay? So those two numbers aren't correct, we cross them off. And clearly if you pick minus 27 and 1, that also won't work. Okay, so let's just write that down. 1 and minus 27 also doesn't work, so we can cross that off. Well, let's say we pick 9 and minus 3. Well, 9 times minus 3 gives me minus 27, but 9 plus minus 3 doesn't give me minus 6. That would give me positive 6. So that also doesn't work, but that tells us we're pretty close. If we get positive 6, but we want minus 6, then clearly we just need to change this 9 here to be negative and the 3 to be positive. Okay. Again, times these together, you get minus 27. And if you add them together, then you get minus 6. Perfect. That gives us our two numbers. So now because we're factorizing a quadratic, again, we have two brackets here. We have two brackets. At the front of each bracket, because we're working with the variable b now here, we're going to have a b at the front of both brackets. And we just put our two numbers in. So because this is minus 9, we're going to get b minus 9. And in the next bracket, or the next bracket, can't speak, we put the 3 in. So b plus 3 there. Okay. Notice here, and this is true when you're always factorizing a quadratic like this, it doesn't matter on the order, whether we write b plus 3 and then b minus 9, or b minus 9 and then b plus 3. Remember, the order of multiplication doesn't matter, so you won't get penalized for writing it a certain way. Okay, but there we go. That's our solution. And again, I would advise and encourage to expand this out and ensure that you do get the same as what we got here. What you will find is that you do. once you expand this out. Okay, but definitely a good habit to get into. So we've just worked through 2 examples. So there's 2 problems now for you to have a go at. So like always, pause the video now, have a quick go, and then we'll take a look together at what you should have got. So hopefully you managed okay with these. Let's take a look at what you should have got now. So the first one here, again, we're just factorizing y squared minus 3y minus 4. So again, we use team here. So we use team. So remember, we times to get the end number, and then we add to get the middle number. So in that case, we need 2 numbers that will times to give me minus 4, but we'll add to give me minus 3. So picking any 2 numbers here, let's say minus 2 and 2. So minus 2 times 2 gives me minus 4. Minus 2 plus 2 doesn't give me the minus 3 here. And similarly, obviously, it doesn't matter which way you write the minus here, they won't work, so we cross that out. Let's say we pick minus 4 and 1. Okay, minus 4 times 1 gives me minus 4, but minus 4 plus 1 gives me the minus 3. So perfect. So I don't know why I said but. That's exactly what we wanted. So there we go. So minus 4 and 1, those are the 2 numbers we need. So we now need to put our double brackets in here. We're going to have a y at the front of both brackets. Like so. And now we just put our numbers in. So it's going to be y minus 4 and then y plus 1. Okay. Like you can see, once you've picked the 2 numbers, it's really easy. You just need to put them into your brackets. Okay. Again, do expand these double brackets here using FOIL. See what you get. You should find that you get the same quadratic as what we started with. And then finally here, the second problem, again, just factorizing g squared plus 13g plus 42. Well, we need 2 numbers that will times to give me 42, but add to give me positive 13 here. So what 2 numbers could I pick? Well, you could obviously do, say, 42 and 1, but that definitely won't add to give you 13. Will times to give you 42, but doesn't add to give you 13. So we don't do 42 and 1. You could do, say, 21 and 2, but again, that doesn't work. We could do 6 and 7. So 6 times 7 gives me 42, and 6 plus 7 gives me 13. Perfect. So those are the 2 numbers we need. We now, because we're factorizing this, put our 2 brackets in. So we're going to have a g at the front of both of these brackets because that's the variable we're working with. So g, put a g at the front of this bracket as well. And now we just put the numbers in that we've picked out here. So we've got 6 and 7. So one of them will be plus 6 and the other will be plus 7. And there we go. Perfect. So that's our solution to the second problem. And then I just wanted to end this video here with 2 kind of unique examples. And this is something quite special, and you might have come across this already. If not, don't worry. But what we call this is the difference of 2 squares. Okay, so this is the difference of 2 squares. So we just write this down here. And this looks a little bit different. So what we've seen with the previous quadratics is we had our x squared, or whatever variable we were working with, squared. And then we would have some multiple of that variable again in the middle. So it would say x squared plus, say, 4x minus 4. But notice with these examples here, we don't have that middle term. It's just x squared minus 4, z squared minus 144. And essentially what's happening here is we've got x squared plus 0x minus 4. That's essentially what we've got here. Now, because this 0x is 0, we don't bother writing it, but that's what we actually have. So again, the process is the same. We're factorizing here, so we need t. So we need 2 numbers that will times to give me the n number, and then add to give me the middle number. Okay, so 2 numbers that times to give me minus 4, but add to give me 0. So what numbers could I pick here? Well, I could pick minus 4 and say 1, but minus 4 plus 1 doesn't give me 0, so it's not that. Let's say we've got minus 2 and 2. Well, minus 2 times 2 is 4, minus 4, and minus 2 plus 2 gives me 0. Perfect. So those are our 2 numbers. So what we do now is we put our double brackets in again. So even though we don't have that middle term, it is still a quadratic. We still write this as 2 brackets. So we're going to have an x at the front of this bracket and an x at the front of this bracket. And all we need to do now is just put our numbers in. So we've got -2, so we've got x minus 2, and then we've got +2, so we get x plus 2. And there we have it. That's our solution here, x minus 2 times x plus 2. Now there's actually a quick way of doing these questions if you notice that it's difference of two squares. So if we're working with a problem where we're asked to factorize a difference of two squares like this, then the really easy way to do it is take a look at the last number. So it's -4 here. Change that to be positive. So let's just say we're working with +4. Now we square root this. So the square root of 4, remember we get two solutions to this. We get +2 and we get -2. Because if you think about it, -2 squared, so -2 times -2 would also give you 4. So what we get here is plus or minus 2. So +2 and -2. And in that case, that tells you the number that goes in the bracket. Okay. So notice there's nothing different here, just +2 and then -2. And clearly the x just goes at the front like we did here, okay, because we're working with x. So if we use that method then for this example here, and again, feel free to pause now, have a quick look at this one. What you should get here though is, because we're working with z, we put z at the front of both brackets. And what we do now is we take this number here and make it positive. So we've got 144. So if we square root that, so the square root of 144, what we get here is plus or minus 12. So what I'm going to get at the front of, at the end of one of these brackets is +12, and at the end of the other bracket, I'll get -12. Okay. Again, let's just expand this out just to check what we get. So using FOIL, z times z is z squared. Z times -12 is -12z. 12 times z would be +12z. And then finally, 12 times -12 would give me -144. And if we collect like terms here, well, essentially all that happens is the -12z cancels with the +12z, and I get left with z squared minus 144. Okay, so like you can see, you don't even need team for the difference of two squares, as long as you can recognize it's the difference of two squares. If you might struggle recognizing the difference of two squares, then stick to team. It won't fail you. It's just a little bit of a longer method, but either way, you should get the correct answer using either method. Okay, so there we have it. So that brings us to the end of this video.